Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Gao Wu. I went crazy with the animation system. Chapter 31. Murong Qingying opened the medicine bottle, and Bai Jie's slender fingers applied some ointment from the bottle, then slowly applied it to the wound on Li Hanfeng's back and spread it gently. Murong Qingying's movements were very light, and her expression was rarely serious. It was as if she was doing something cautiously for the first time, but she actually felt a little gentle, which formed a sharp contrast with the cold temperament exuding from her body. Li Hanfeng felt Murong Qingying's cool and delicate palm gently caressing his back. The physical pain and psychological strangeness intertwined into a strange feeling, which made him think a lot. Murong Qingying quickly finished applying it. After a pause, she said, "I don't have gauze." Roar, roar, roar. Before Murong Qingying finished speaking, the roars of beasts came from outside the tree hole. She frowned, seemingly displeased. Hearing this, Li Hanfeng also came to his senses, broke away from the strange feeling just now, grinned and said, "Murong, school beauty, you go first. I will do the rest." Li Hanfeng felt a biting chill coming from behind, trying to freeze the person's soul. He quickly turned around and looked. I saw Murong Qingying's body exuding a cold mist visible to the naked eye, and layers of ice scab spread from her feet towards the entrance of the cave, freezing all the way. Soon the entire entrance to the tree hole was blocked by an ice shield that exuded the coldness of the forest. Then Murong Qingying looked at Li Hanfeng calmly, her voice was still as cold but very soft. "Gauze, Li Hanfeng." Li Hanfeng obediently took out the gauze from the System Mall warehouse and handed it to Murong Qingying. He had already anticipated various situations when entering the misty forest, so he spent 20,000 yuan to buy some medicine, gauze, dry food and water, and brought some changes of clothes. Murong Qingying took the gauze and began to bandage Li Hanfeng. Winding around and around, the movements were very light and unfamiliar, but also very serious. Roar, boom. There was a sudden shaking in the tree hole. It was obvious that the monster outside was already attacking the ice shield at the entrance of the tree hole. At this time, Murong Qingying had already wrapped the gauze, and her plain eyes looked a little cold at the moment. Li Hanfeng saw that a monster had already attacked the ice shield and had gauze wrapped around his body. He immediately turned around and said, "Come on, let's go take a look." Murong Qingying nodded and remained silent. The moment she turned around, an extreme coldness spread from her body, making Li Hanfeng shiver. What's going on? There seems to be something wrong with this school beauty Murong. As Li Hanfeng walked outside and took out a brand new piece of clothing from the System Mall warehouse, he was still thinking to himself. Bang, whoosh whoosh. As soon as Li Hanfeng put on her clothes, she saw Murong Qingying wave her jade hand, and the ice shield immediately exploded, then turned into countless small ice blades and shot out. Then she flashed and jumped down the tree hole. Li Hanfeng immediately walked quickly to the entrance of the tree hole. However, when he looked out, the scene in front of him shocked his eyes. Murong Qingying's body was exuding an extremely terrifying cold air. Everything within 10 meters around her had turned into ice, and the front of her was filled with all kinds of monsters. The monster beasts that would have attacked and hunted each other didn't even pay attention to the corpses on the ground. Instead, they surrounded Murong Qingying. I don't know if they felt the threat from Murong Qingying, or they also understood the meaning of not being of my species. What is this? A talent move. Li Hanfeng's eyes flashed with shock, because he saw that as Murong Qingying walked forward step by step, the 10-meter area around her was like a field, moving with her, and everything she passed was covered in ice. Even the group of monsters slowly took a few steps back, perhaps feeling threatened or perhaps waiting for the leader to appear. Roar, ouch, roar. Sure enough, at this time, 3 roars sounded from the group of monster beasts. The group of monster beasts immediately stopped retreating and even took a few steps forward. Then he saw 3 beast shadows coming out of the herd, a white tiger with blood stripes on its body, a rhinoceros covered in iron armor, and a demon ape with 3 eyes. When Li Hanfeng saw this scene in the tree hole, his pupils darkened slightly, his face became a little solemn, and he whispered, "Trouble, the 3-headed and 3rd-level monsters are not simple things. There are more than 30 monsters surrounding them. It's a bit difficult to handle." At this time, both his physical condition and spiritual energy reserves were no longer at their peak. Murong Qingying was at her peak, but she had just broken through to the 3rd level. No matter how strong she was limited and could not resolve the battle in a short time. As long as the battle is not resolved in a short time, then in this misty forest, even if they are twice as strong, they will not be able to defeat the monsters. Thinking of this, Li Hanfeng immediately jumped down from the tree hole and came to a place 10 meters away from Murong Qingying. He was a little afraid of the cold, so he didn't dare to get too close. Murong School Beauty, let's attack with all our strength, and then evacuate according to the route I planned. Murong Qingying turned to look at Li Hanfeng, nodded, and said in a cold voice. You stay away from me. Murong Qingying naturally knew that they could not continue to kill here no matter what, so they could only kill a wave of big ones and then retreat. This wave was good. As soon as she finished speaking, Murong Qingying moved. She slowly raised her jade hands, the spiritual energy in her body surged crazily, and she scolded. Condensation. In an instant, the surrounding elemental power rushed toward Murong Qingying crazily, and then condensed into ice spears more than 1 meter long around her body, with cold light overflowing. Ice crystal armor also began to appear on his body. He held his right hand in the void, and an ice sword took shape instantly. He raised his left hand and pressed it forward in the void, and said softly, Go. Swish swish. In an instant, countless ice spears shot towards the group of monster beasts, causing a series of crackling sounds in the air, which moved like thunder and fell like lightning, making people shudder and tremble. The moment the spear was shot, Murong Qingying flashed and attacked directly towards the three-headed third-level monster. Wherever the figure passed, the ground, flowers, plants, and even monsters were all covered with a thick layer of ice crystals. Ding ding, bang bang, phew, roar. In an instant, countless chaotic sounds sounded in the field, including the collision of ice spears being blocked, the sound of ice spears being inserted into flesh and blood, and the wailing and roaring of monster beasts. The sounds were endless. Murong Qingying had already rushed into the beast group alone and fought with 3 third-level monsters, while few other monsters dared to come within 10 meters of her. I saw that the 3-headed third-level monsters in the field were a little stiff in their movements. From time to time, a layer of frost would condense on their bodies, and then they would be shattered by their body strength, and so on. Murong Qingying, on the other hand, relied on her ethereal body skills to dodge among the 3 monster beasts that moved stiffly, leaving wounds on them from time to time with the ice sword in her hand. The cold air from the wounds entered the body, making their movements even slower, and their speed, reaction, and attack were all weakened by more than 1 level. Roar, roar, ouch. Under this situation, they have no chance to hurt Murong Qingying, and they cannot escape from the battlefield, because they are now restricted by Murong Qingying's field. As long as they want to escape, they will be stopped by Murong Qingying. Come down and cut it. All he could do was let out a low roar, venting the anger and a little bit of uneasiness in his heart. Li Hanfeng watched from the side with his pupils trembling. Is this Murong Qingying's strength? And which field is the new talent move she has mastered after breaking through the 3rd level? Horrible. No wonder she is confident that she can kill me. Confidence really comes from strength. But it's almost time for me to take action. Just now, Li Hanfeng saw how fierce Murong Qingying was, so he didn't step forward to help. Instead, he went to collect the trophies from before. The main reason was that he was afraid of being accidentally injured. After all, the opponent's moves were ranged. Now that he had dug out the cores of the monsters he had killed before and the monsters that were nailed to death by Murong Qingying's ice spear just now, he had no time to process the other materials. And he also noticed that Murong Qingying's face turned a little white. It should be that maintaining that field required a lot of spiritual energy and could not be maintained for a long time. This is normal. Otherwise, her level 3 transcendence is somewhat beyond the standard. Even an SSS level talent cannot be so unreasonable. One person can fight against more than 30 demonic beasts, and there are 3 others of the same level. This must have limitations. For example, if Murong Qingying explodes with all her strength now, she must kill these 3 third-level monsters in a short time, otherwise she will die once her spiritual energy cannot maintain this field. Normally she would never do this, but isn't there Li Hanfeng now? Boom. The ground under Li Hanfeng's feet made an overwhelming sound of cracking. Gravel splashed, and golden thunder light danced on the surface of his body. As soon as he stepped on it, his figure disappeared instantly. Breath of Thunder, Form of 1, Flash of Thunder, 6th Series. Murong Qingying felt the movement coming from Li Hanfang and instantly withdrew the surrounding area. This thing did not distinguish between people. The dissipation of this field made the three monster beasts relax, but they were not much better. They already had a lot of wounds on their bodies, a lot of cold air had invaded their bodies, and their blood was somewhat coagulated, so the movements are still very stiff. Aha! Before they could adjust their counterattack, a golden lightning flashed across the field, leaving a bloody mark on the hind legs of the blood-striped white tiger. Roar! It's really not that simple. Li Hanfang's knife just now was originally intended to hit the blood-striped white tiger's neck, but it twisted its neck to avoid it at the critical moment, so it could only hit the hind leg. But it's not over yet. Aha! Another golden lightning flashed, still directed at the blood-striped white tiger. Phew! The blood-striped white tiger's body was already stiff due to the cold air, and its hind legs were seriously injured. It was basically impossible to dodge such continuous rapid attacks. There was also a bone-breaking knife edge on the other hind leg. Thump! The blood-striped white tiger, whose hind legs were severely injured, fell to the ground and couldn't get up for a while. Aha! A golden thunder light flashed, and a huge tiger head was thrown into the air, bringing up a blood flower and flying into the air, and then turned into blood-colored snowflakes and fell. Swish, swish, swish. Almost at the same time, golden lightning flashed continuously in the field and struck the armored rhinoceros neck 3 times in a row before cutting off its entire head. On the other side, Murong Qingying's ice sword also exploded at the neck of the three-eyed demon-loving ape, directly blowing its head out from the inside. After the two people stopped, they both panted slightly and looked at each other. After the two looked around the surrounding situation, they looked at each other again in a very tacit understanding. Li Hanfang, run away. Murong Qingying nodded. You lead the way. At this time, a large number of monster beasts had begun to surround them. In addition to the more than 30 monster beasts that were restricted by Murong Qingying's field and did not dare to approach, a dozen more monster beasts came from behind. Although they are all first and second level monsters, there are too many of them, and the smell of blood here is too strong. Who knows how many more will come in the future? The two of them couldn't afford it. Li Hanfang and Murong Qingying began to retreat slowly, gathering strength to prepare for a wave of attacks to break up their encirclement and then take the opportunity to evacuate. Roar! At this moment, a roar sounded from behind the beast group, and the power it exuded was obviously several times stronger than that of the third-level monsters. The pupils of Li Hanfang and Murong Qingying suddenly shrank. Here I go, I actually provoked a mid-level monster outside the misty forest. It seems a bit too much. Li Hanfang cursed lowly, but at the same time, he did not move slowly. He used the tang knife to dig out 3 beast cores on the ground. Then he turned to look at Murong Qingying. Just as he was about to speak, he was slightly startled. What are you doing? You're running away. At this moment, Murong Qingying actually ran in front of the blood-striped white tiger, cut off its tiger legs with a sword, and put it into the space ring. Then she turned to look at Li Hanfang, and said in a still cold voice. Lead the way, Li Hanfang. In an instant, thunder light suddenly appeared, and Li Hanfang turned into a bolt of lightning and disappeared on the spot, and Murong Qingying followed him in a flash. When the two escaped, they didn't find an enchanting figure standing on top of the big tree where Li Hanfang had opened the tree hole, watching their fight the whole time. She stood on the branch, her aura seemed to be integrated with the environment. She turned to look at the direction Li Hanfang and the others left, and said in a coquettish tone. It's interesting. I didn't expect that this small 4th-level base city would produce such a genius, but, the other one is the one from the Murong family, right? How interesting. It seems that after this college entrance examination, I will come to this place again. As soon as he finished speaking, the figure had disappeared, as if everything just now was an illusion and no one had ever appeared here. At the same time, on the other side of the misty forest periphery, a beautiful girl and an old man with gray hair were slowly walking towards the depths of the misty forest. Suddenly, the two of them stopped for a moment, and at the same time turned their heads to look in the direction where Li Hanfang was fighting. After the girl stared for a moment, her little cherry mouth opened slightly, and her voice was pure and sweet. Mr. Hua, there seems to be a lot of movement over there. The old man known as Hua Lao nodded slightly and said, Yes, miss. It seems that a 4th-level monster has driven a wave of small beasts to fight with someone. When the girl heard this, a trace of surprise flashed in her eyes, and she spoke with a hint of curiosity. Who actually provoked the mid-level monsters to appear in the periphery and gathered a herd of beasts? It's really strange. At this time, Mr. Wah reminded. Miss, it's getting late, let's continue on our way. Okay, let's go. The girl said this, and the two of them continued to walk slowly deeper into the forest, but a young man in black appeared in her mind. It can't be him, right? The misty forest at night is like a mysterious and dangerous world, exuding a ghostly atmosphere. The shadows of the trees are intertwined, the shadows are hidden, and there is silence. There is only the faint sound of wind and the slight sound of creatures touching the ground, which is especially clear and bright in the silent night. However, somewhere in this silent and dangerous forest, a cave on a cliff reflected a slight light of fire. This is a cave that is attached to a cliff in midair, about 6 meters above the ground. At this time, there is a faint firelight swaying at the entrance of the cave, which looks a bit unusual in the dark and cold forest. At this time, two figures, a man and a woman, were sitting cross-legged in the cave, with a bonfire in front of them reflecting their faces. The man has a covered eyebrow and broken hair, and his facial features are three-dimensional and angular. The woman has long hair like a waterfall, a cool temperament, and a beautiful face. Both of them were covered in blood, their faces were a little pale, and their breaths were a little disordered. They seemed to have just experienced an extremely dangerous battle. The two people were Li Hanfang and Murong Qingying. As soon as the mid-level monster roared, they fled quickly. I escaped from morning to night, nearly 10 hours of escape. It's really 10 minutes to fight and 10 hours to escape. During this period, the two of them were fighting and running away, and they both received a lot of wounds on their bodies, but they were not serious injuries, but that was because the mid-level monster did not catch up, otherwise it would be difficult to tell. Just to get rid of those first and second level monsters was enough for them to drink a pot. Because there was too much movement, many monsters blocked their escape route. As a result, they had to constantly change routes. Originally, Li Hanfang wanted to escape separately, but Murong Qingying didn't know the destination at all. This forced Li Hanfang to give up this idea, because it was very dangerous to escape randomly in this situation. In this way, after nearly 10 hours of danger, the two finally got rid of the pursuit of the group of monsters and then arrived at the planned destination. This place was originally the nest of a first-order breeze bird, and it was marked on the map. It was a very good place to stay, both in terms of geographical environment and view. So this is their territory now. As for the breeze bird, here, that's the ice sculpture at the back. Phew. Li Hanfang let out a long breath and opened his eyes. At this time, several spiritual stones beside him had turned dim. In order to restore his spiritual energy as quickly as possible, he directly took out a bunch of spiritual stones and placed them around for the two of them to recover and avoid accidents. After all, the spiritual energy vortex was about to dry up when they came here. Li Hanfang glanced at Murong Qingying and found that she was still practicing with her eyes closed and did not mean to disturb her. Instead, she counted the harvest. First of all, the most important killing value. With a thought, Li Hanfang's system panel appeared, killing value, 205. From the beginning of the Gale Wolf Pack until the time when they escaped, they killed a few first-order animals and the remaining 15 points, there were a total of 205 killing points. From this look, it seems that 500 killing points are not far away. As soon as Li Hanfang came up with this idea, he quickly shook his head. He didn't want to run away for more than 10 hours a day. And it's not always good luck, just to this once in a while. Next, we counted the beast cores. There were 8 third-level beast cores, 8 second-level beast cores, and 9 first-level beast cores, for a total of 25 beast cores. There are also a number of materials for various monsters that I won't list in detail here. Although it is dangerous, the rewards are also great. When I go back and sell the things, I guess there will be no shortage of spiritual stones in a short time, right? However, it's time to break through to the third level. Our current strength is still too weak. Li Hanfang began to deal with the wounds on his body and fled all the way. Not only did the wounds on his right shoulder and back burst open again, but there was also a claw mark on his left forearm and left calf. Fortunately, the wounds were not very deep and no bones were damaged. Li Hanfang took off his clothes and began to clean the wounds on his upper body, first on his left forearm, then on his right shoulder, and just wrapped the gauze again on his back. After Li Hanfang had taken care of all the wounds on his body and practiced for another half-quarter of an hour, Murong Qingying stopped practicing and opened her beautiful eyes. Murong Qingying opened her eyes and looked at Li Hanfang. She didn't say anything and started to deal with her wounds. Maybe because of the ice crystal armor, there was only one wound on her body. This wound was on the left shoulder, a claw mark extending below the collarbone. If you scratched a little bit of clothes downwards, it would probably be a break. Murong Qingying took off her sports coat, revealing a pure white short-sleeved t-shirt. She gently tore open the collar of the short-sleeved shirt, completely exposing the wound. At the same time, a piece of snow-white jade like mutton fat jade was revealed. She has fair skin and half a beautiful curved jade peak. It's just that the wound on it, which is still bleeding slightly, looks a little hideous, affecting the overall appearance. Murong Qingying was about to clean the wound, but suddenly she seemed to think of something, and suddenly turned her head to look at Li Hanfang. Their eyes met, the air was a little solid for a while, and neither of them spoke. After a while, Murong Qingying frowned slightly. Nice. Li Hanfang immediately turned his back and said quickly. I'm sorry, School Beauty Murong, I was a little distracted just now thinking about my cultivation breakthrough, and I didn't see you treating your wounds. Murong Qingying saw that Li Hanfang had turned around, and a fleeting blush flashed across his face. He did not answer, but gently raised his jade hand to touch his shoulder, and carefully cleaned the wound. After waiting for a long time, Li Hanfang didn't see Murong Qingying calling him. It wasn't until he heard the sound of sizzling barbecue and the smell of meat wafting into his nose that he felt something was wrong. Unable to hold back the desire to look back any longer, he began to turn his head slowly. First he glanced at the situation behind him from the corner of his eye. When he saw the situation clearly, he immediately turned around and said in a somewhat urgent voice. You're fine, why didn't you call me? Are you still grilling meat? Where did you come from? At this point, Li Hanfang suddenly paused, thinking that before they escaped, Murong Qingying seemed to have cut off a tiger leg. Murong Qingying didn't say anything. She had changed into a new set of clothes and was concentrating on roasting tiger legs without even raising her head to look at Li Hanfang. Li Hanfang was a little helpless. The temperament of this school belle Murong was really too cold. That was nonsense and she didn't want to say more. He could only speak tentatively. Then you can help me keep an eye on it after you finish eating. Can I refine the crazy blood flower? When Murong Qingying heard this, she moved her hands for a moment, then immediately returned to normal. She still didn't speak, but nodded. Seeing Murong Qingying nodding, Li Hanfang immediately exhaled. It was too difficult to communicate. Then Li Hanfang turned his left hand, and a comic book appeared in his hand. The speed of reading comics has slowed down in the past 2 days. This is not good. This is the foundation of his establishment in this world. Then Li Hanfang had comic books in one hand and solid food in the other, and he started reading while eating. But soon there was a tangy smell of meat, and he suddenly felt that the dry food in his mouth was like chewing wax. At this time, a slender hand held a large piece of roasted tiger leg meat and handed it to Li Hanfang. He looked up and saw Murong Qingying looking at him with a dull expression, and the corner of his mouth curled up. Thanks. Not politely, he stretched out his hand to take the tiger meat, and then the two of them started to eat the tiger meat. They both said nothing in a tacit understanding, because they were really hungry. After fighting for a day, they consumed a lot of energy. Soon the two of them finished their dinner. Li Hanfang immediately took out the crazy blood flower and put it in his mouth, not forgetting to say, "Excuse me, I'll be quick." While talking, he also took out a lot of spiritual stones and placed them beside him, so he was very well prepared. Murong Qingying didn't say anything. A burst of ice mist surged around her body and she washed her hands clean before walking slowly to the entrance of the cave. Li Hanfang also concentrated and started to use the breathing method. The crazy blood flower in his mouth, the spiritual stones around his body, and the nearby spiritual energy all swarmed in. It was almost visible to the naked eye to form a spiritual energy vortex with Li Hanfang as the center, and then passed through his mouth. Nose, the pores penetrated into his body crazily. Sensing the movement here, Murong Qingying also turned around. After seeing the situation clearly, her eyes trembled slightly, a look of surprise flashed in her eyes, and she murmured in a low voice. What kind of method is this? How can it be so terrifying? Murong Qingying took a deep look at Li Hanfeng. She felt that this man who had awakened his S-level talent on the day of awakening was really extraordinary. No wonder she felt threatened that day. Murong Qingying looked at Li Hanfeng for a moment and then turned to look outside the cave. She wanted to be on guard against possible dangers, because the movement was really not that small. Half an hour later, the spiritual energy vortex finally dissipated, leaving only strands of spiritual energy still surrounding Li Hanfeng. Click. There was a crisp sound in Li Hanfeng's body, and then the spiritual energy vortex that had expanded to the limit expanded by a large circle. Li Hanfeng's eyes suddenly opened, and the golden arc of lightning flashed in his eyes. Really a breakthrough. Li Hanfeng looked a little happy. He was different from Murong Qingying. Murong Qingying had reached the second level peak and could break through almost at any time. And he had just reached the second level of advanced level, so it took him so long, and he had to lament the miraculous effect of the crazy blood flower. It can be said that without this flower, he would definitely not be able to break the level so quickly. Li Hanfeng raised his hands and shook them, feeling the strength of his body at this moment, nodded with satisfaction, and then with a thought, the personal panel appeared in his sight. Personal panel. Race. Human. Age. 17. Talent. Breath of Thunder. Level. Extraordinary Level 3. Skills. Thunder Breath. 1 form. Thunderbolt Flash. Thunder Breath. 2 form. Rice Soul. Thunder Breath. 3 forms. Gathering mosquitoes into thunder. Fire Escape. Huge Fireball Technique. Task. None. Li Hanfeng felt the information coming from his mind, his eyes lit up slightly, and he growled in his heart. The third sword type has more ways to deal with the enemy, and the strength has improved a lot. Then Li Hanfeng stood up slowly, moved his body a little, then looked in the direction of Murong Qingying, and found that the other party was also looking at him. He grinned and said, "Thank you very much." Murong Qingying looked at the young man with eyes narrowed into crescents and a smile on his face. He seemed harmless and a bit lazy, but she felt a strong sense of threat from him. Seeing that the other party was looking at him without speaking, Li Hanfeng felt a little confused and asked tentatively, "What's wrong?" After hearing this, Murong Qingying withdrew her gaze and said calmly, "It's okay, I just don't think it's easy to kill you now." Li Hanfeng was stunned when he heard this, and then his head was full of black lines. "If you are so good at talking, say less. If you don't know how to chat, you don't have to force it. I really don't mind." He was complaining silently in his heart, but he said, "Get some rest. Everyone is tired today. I'll stay up until midnight. You go to bed first." Murong Qingying had no objection. After nodding, she walked to the bonfire and leaned against the stone wall to squint. When Li Hanfeng saw Murong Qingying starting to rest, he immediately walked to the entrance of the cave and sat cross-legged on the ground, looking out at the silent night outside. He began to summarize the experience of these battles and the next development direction. First of all, my current ability is not suitable for a war of attrition. All my moves are instant bursts, and I pursue a one-hit kill. This will cause a lot of burden on the body, and I can't afford it. Secondly, I am not suitable for group battles. My moves are all very powerful single-target kills. There are no group attack moves at all. The attack range of the fireball is not a group attack at all. This is exactly the opposite of Murong Qingying. She doesn't seem to have a strong single-target killer move. So the Sharingan must be the first priority next, so the next step is to continue to strengthen its single-target combat capabilities or expand its group attack capabilities. Li Hanfeng touched his chin and fell into deep thought. After a while, determination flashed in his eyes. Let's continue to strengthen the single-target combat ability. Now neither the explosive power nor the attack power have reached the extreme. I'm biting off more than I can chew. I'll leave the group attack ability until the mid-level to consider it. So the goal is very clear. The Sharingan is the first goal, and then the Thunder Release, Chidori. It is best to get all the abilities derived from this set: Chidori Sharp Spear, Chidori Style, etc. Quote, "Using Thunder Escape combined with Thunder Breathing, you can definitely maximize your explosive power and attack power, and you also have extremely strong elemental attack capabilities. Coupled with the Sharingan, my single target combat ability will reach another stage, and then I can pursue group attack capabilities. Thinking of this, Li Hanfeng's eyes sparkled with light. In the early morning, perhaps because this area was relatively open, a ray of sunlight shone on Li Hanfeng's face through the dark forest. Li Hanfeng opened his eyes drowsily, maybe because he was tired yesterday, or maybe because someone kept vigil last night. In short, Li Hanfeng slept well last night. He stretched and was suddenly startled. He turned around and looked around and found that Murong Qingying was missing. "I'll go." Is this Murong University beauty trying to leave without saying goodbye? Li Hanfeng muttered, and was about to take a look outside the cave, when he saw a beautiful figure leaping up the cave, holding a bare paw in his hand. Murong Qingying saw that Li Hanfeng had woken up and nodded towards him. Then she looked at the extinguished bonfire and said softly, "Fire. Easy to understand. Don't say a word more." Li Hanfeng looked at the bare paw held by Murong Qingying, and then turned to look at the bonfire. He had no choice but to make a seal with his hands, and lit the bonfire with a huge fireball, while he kept muttering in his heart, "If you eat something so greasy so early in the morning, you won't have to worry about gaining weight." When Murong Qingying saw that Li Hanfeng had already lit the fire, she said nothing more and began to handle the bare paws on her hands. Her movements were not unfamiliar at all, and she seemed to have done these things frequently. While Murong Qingying was handling the food, Li Hanfeng took out the map given by Zhang Ziyuan and looked at it carefully. He wanted to study where to go next. After all, he couldn't stay here all the time to earn kill points. Li Hanfeng didn't discuss it with Murong Qingying, because even if he discussed it with her, she would probably just nod and ask you to lead the way. It didn't take long for Murong Qingying to roast the bear's paws. The rich aroma of the meat hit the nostrils, whetting one's appetite. The two of them started eating immediately. Li Hanfeng was gesturing on the map while eating, chewing the meat and talking at the same time, without fear of choking. "We will go to this area later. Although it is a bit far, this area is where third-order monsters gather. Although it is a bit close to the central area, the probability of encountering mid-level monsters is much higher, but with the strength of the two of us, as long as we are not reluctant to fight, it is still no problem to run. We have already achieved breakthroughs in strength. Now this place is no longer suitable for us to practice unless we are chased for 10 hours like yesterday. Over there, maybe we can go into the central area to practice. Of course, we can't go too deep. If we encounter a 6th-level monster, then we will probably give it to you." Li Hanfeng was analyzing while eating, but found that Murong Qingying didn't reply a word, and didn't even look at the map on the ground. Li Hanfeng was a little speechless, so he had to put away the map on the ground, and then said helplessly, "Forget it, I will lead the way in a moment, so you don't need to read the map." After saying this, Murong Qingying still said nothing or nodded. Li Hanfeng frowned, but usually nodded anyway. But Li Hanfeng didn't say any more, he was used to it. "I ate the bear paw with concentration, and I have to say that the taste is indeed not comparable to that of dry food, even though there is no seasoning." The two of them soon finished a somewhat greasy breakfast. After cleaning up each other, they got up and prepared to leave. Li Hanfeng moved his body, put away the remaining spirit stones on the ground, and immediately walked outside without forgetting to say, "Come on, Murong University beauty, I will take you to find excitement today. Although it may not be as exciting as yesterday, haha." When he walked to the entrance of the cave, he found that Murong Qingying had not moved. Li Hanfeng turned his head, his expression became calm, and he asked in a nonchalant tone, "What's the matter?" He already had some vague guesses in his mind, but he thought it would be better to ask. Murong Qingying just looked at Li Hanfeng without saying a word. Li Hanfeng also looked at her, and the two of them looked at each other silently. After a long time, Murong Qingying spoke, her voice still cold, and no emotion could be heard. "I'm going back to my family for training in a few days." Li Hanfeng nodded and asked indifferently, "Leaving today?" Murong Qingying nodded. After Li Hanfeng thought for a while, he said seriously, "Your talent moves are all group attack damage. You lack the means to kill with one hit in single target battles. You can develop in this area this time when you go back. Of course, I just suggest that if you have strong single target attack moves, then forget it. After hearing Li Hanfeng's words, Murong Qingying's eyes fluctuated for a moment, and then she lowered her eyes slightly. After nodding, she gave a rare reply. Her tone was not so cold and seemed a little softer. I see. When Li Hanfeng saw that Murong Qingying could actually reply, he immediately grinned and said, "Well, Murong, school beauty, let's say goodbye. See you in the college entrance examination. By the way, do you need me to send you off?" Li Hanfeng asked with a bit of joking. Murong Qingying shook her head, her red lips slightly opened. "See you in the college entrance examination." After saying that, she turned around and was about to leave, but suddenly stopped, turned around and looked at Li Hanfeng, and spoke in the same calm tone. "Call me Qingying." Li Hanfeng was startled, then grinned and said with a smile. "Aha, I get it. So, Qingying, let's see you in the college entrance examination." Upon hearing this, Murong Qingying nodded, still as cold as ever, turned around and left without saying another word. Just when he turned around, a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Li Hanfeng stood there, watching Murong Qingying go away. He didn't look away until the other party's figure disappeared, and then his eyes became firm. "Then, we're alone next, it's time to go." After whispering, Li Hanfeng turned around and walked towards the middle of the misty forest. Breath of thunder one type. Boom, swish, swish, swish. Along with the sound of the ground shattering, a golden thunder flashed continuously in the field, and every time it flashed, it would bring up a blood flower. Ho ho ho. As the golden thunder continued to bring up blood flowers, screams of beasts were heard in the field. But this does not change their subsequent fate. The 3 armored rhinos in the field were seen shaking their heads constantly, as if they were trying to attack something with their giant horns. However, every time they could only see a flash of lightning, there was already an additional wound on their body. The powerful limbs kept crushing the ground, and the body kept running rampant. The 3 armored rhinos kept struggling, trying to intercept the constantly flashing golden thunder. However, it was all in vain, because the thunder was too fast, and only the lightning was visible, but not its body shape. Swish, swish, swish. The necks of the 3 armored rhinoceros were finally overwhelmed by the weight, and they were thrown directly away in the flash of lightning, causing a rain of blood and making the already dark forest even more terrifying. Bang bang bang. As 3 corpses fell to the ground, a young man wearing a black assault jacket appeared not far away. The knife in his hand had been sheathed, and the white mist lingering around his mouth slowly dissipated. Thunderbolt flash, 8th Company. The young man turned around and collected the materials from the 3 armored rhinoceroses. After digging out the beast's core, he quickly dodged and left the place. In the dark forest, the young man's figure kept flashing at an extremely fast speed. About 20 minutes later, he came to a towering giant tree. He looked at the hole in the giant tree in front of him, and a thought appeared in his eyes. A touch of memory. He lifted his steps, jumped up, and was already climbing up the tree. He did not enter the tree hole, but flew towards the top of the tree. Whoosh whoosh. Accompanied by the rustling of the leaves, the young man's figure climbed to the top of the tree. He looked up to the sky, and a ray of sunlight fell on the young man's face. It's Li Hanfeng. At this time, his face lost a touch of childishness and gained a touch of determination and coldness. The broken hair that originally covered his eyebrows had also covered his eyes, and there was a sharp and murderous aura on his body. After Li Hanfeng looked around, he whispered softly. "It's been a month, it's time to go back. Today should be June 2nd, and the college entrance examination is about half a month away. I hope the assassination can be dealt with before the college entrance examination. As long as they have a certain power in the base city, they will probably take action as soon as I return, right?" At this point in his thoughts, Li Hanfeng's originally relaxed face suddenly turned cold, and a flash of scarlet flashed in his pupils. Li Hanfeng immediately got off the top of the tree and began to rush out of the misty forest. It was getting late now. He had to rush back to the base city before dark, and then dispose of his belongings in exchange for some spiritual stones. The spirit stones he obtained from the killer have long been used up, and he has not used the spirit stones for many days. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but think of the materials and beast cores in the warehouse of his system mall, and a somewhat wretched smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. In the evening, SH Base City, City Gate. Li Hanfeng looked at this tall and majestic city wall, and couldn't help but smile. This January, his life was nothing but killing, and he was surrounded by trees, mountains and rocks. Now that I suddenly saw this majestic city wall, I actually felt a little friendly, which made Li Hanfeng's tense nerves relax a little. Li Hanfeng walked slowly towards this majestic city wall. When he came to the city gate, a spear was placed in front of him, followed by a strong male voice. Please show proof of identity. Hearing this voice, Li Hanfeng was not surprised and handed over the hunter's certificate and citizenship card that had been prepared in advance. The guarding soldier reached out and took it, glanced at Li Hanfeng, and then looked at the citizen identity card. Then a flash of surprise flashed across the soldier's face, and then he looked at the bronze 3-star hunter badge in his hand, with a look of surprise on his face. Oh, it's you. Li Hanfeng was startled when he heard this, and then he raised his head and looked at the soldiers. As if he remembered something, he immediately performed a standard military salute, then grinned and said, "Report, he's not dead." This soldier was the one Li Hanfeng met when he left the city, and he even said a few words to him at that time. What a coincidence, I didn't expect to meet him again when I came back. The soldier was stunned for a moment, and then a faint smile appeared on his stern face. He put away the spear lying in front of him, handed the thing back to Li Hanfeng, and responded with a military salute with a serious expression. You are a good boy. It looks like you have been in the misty forest for a month. Your temperament has changed. No wonder I didn't recognize him at first. In fact, Li Hanfeng was easy to recognize. There were not many such young bronze 3-star hunters, and he had a deep impression of Li Hanfeng at that time. But he never saw Li Hanfeng come back, thinking that he had been in an accident. In addition, Li Hanfeng's temperament had changed a little, so he didn't recognize him at first. Li Hanfeng smiled and said lightly, "Yeah, it was quite dangerous, but luckily I didn't die." When the soldier heard this, he took a deep look at Li Hanfeng and then said, "Go back, go home and have a good rest, relax your nerves, don't break your nerves. By the way, my name is Wang Hu. If you need any help in the future, you can come to me here." Li Hanfeng was a little surprised when he heard this. Was he looking after himself? But he quickly thanked her. "Thanks, Brother Tiger, I'll go back first." Wang Hu nodded, then walked aside and continued to guard the tall and majestic city gate. Li Hanfeng slowly walked into the city gate and walked into the downtown area. Looking at the city with people coming and going and traffic flowing, he suddenly felt like he was in another world. He hadn't seen so many people in a long time. Li Hanfeng felt a little emotional, and then walked quickly towards the direction of Lingbao Pavilion. He wanted to deal with the materials on his body first and get some spiritual stones and money to use. Just as Li Hanfeng left quickly, the cashier of a small department store next to him was looking at Li Hanfeng's back with twinkling eyes, then turned around and disappeared. Target appears. What he didn't know was that the moment he disappeared, Li Hanfeng, who was walking away quickly, suddenly turned his head and glanced at the department store. A pair of pupils were scarlet, and among the faintly visible red pupils, there was a black tadpole-shaped magatama slowly rotating, exuding an extremely evil aura. Sure enough, there are people watching this side of the city gate. I guess there are people watching from my house too, right? Li Hanfeng's expression was stern and his voice was cold, which was very different from his usual demeanor. It seemed that these scarlet eyes had brought some other changes to him. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe. Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Gao Wu, I Went Crazy with the Animation System. Chapter 36. After discovering that someone was indeed monitoring him, Li Hanfeng's slightly relaxed nerves became tense again. However, he is not too worried. One is that his current strength is not comparable to before, and the other is that the opponent cannot blatantly deal with him in the base city, but they have to guard against him. The soldiers are coming to cover up the water and the earth. If you want to kill me, just come and try. After whispering, Li Hanfeng regained his lazy demeanor and walked slowly towards Lingbao Pavilion. At the same time, inside a luxurious mansion. Master, we just received a tip. Li Hanfeng has appeared. He should be going to Lingbao Pavilion now. In the empty hall, an old man was respectfully reporting to Zhou Zonghai, who was sitting in the main seat. When Zhou Zonghai, who was originally leaning on the main seat, heard this, he sat up straight, narrowed his eyes slightly, and said in a gloomy tone. Is the news confirmed? Shouldn't he have died in the misty forest? Mr. Fu lowered his head slightly and replied in a respectful tone. Master, we do guess that he died in the misty forest with Ying San, and he didn't show up for a month. This possibility is very high, but this is just a guess. After a pause, Mr. Fu continued. Furthermore, the information came from the informant we arranged at the city gate, and it is basically certain to be true, so I thought that he should have just come out of the misty forest. As for Ying San. At this point, Mr. Fu did not continue, but Zhou Zonghai could naturally understand what he meant. His face was gloomy and terrifying, and he said coldly, let Ying lead a group of shadow guards to ambush near his home and wait for an opportunity. As soon as there is an opportunity. At this point, Zhou Zonghai's eyes were cold, murderous intent was surging in his body, and his voice was low. Kill without mercy. After he finished speaking, his expression returned to calm, and then he added calmly. Try to keep the noise as small as possible, deal with it cleanly, and don't leave any clues. That old guy Li Xingwu is not easy to fool. Yes, master, I will give you the instructions now. After saying this, Mr. Fu bowed respectfully, turned around and left quickly. Zhou Zonghai was the only one left in the hall sitting on the main seat, his eyes twinkling slightly. Please call your manager out. I have a business I want to discuss with him. In Lingbao Pavilion, Li Hanfeng said to the pretty receptionist in front of him in a lazy tone. The receptionist was stunned when she heard this. She took a closer look at Li Hanfeng and found that he was very young. Although his face was handsome, he looked a little immature. After looking at it for a moment, she made sure that Li Hanfeng was not joking. She could only smile and said respectfully, okay, please wait a moment, sir. Although she didn't think that a young man could negotiate any big business with Lingbao Pavilion, she was just a receptionist and she just had to do what a receptionist should do. Li Hanfeng could naturally tell what the other party was thinking, but he didn't say much because it was completely unnecessary. He just watched her turn around and leave, waiting quietly. Soon, the beautiful receptionist came over with a well-dressed middle-aged man with a slicked back hair. Deacon Hao, this is the gentleman who said he has business to discuss with you. Hearing the receptionist's words, Deacon Hao took a look at Li Hanfeng. Seeing that Li Hanfeng looked immature and clearly still a high school student, he immediately frowned, but still asked patiently. I wonder what this gentleman wants to talk to me about. As he spoke, he waved his hand, indicating to the beautiful receptionist that she could leave. The receptionist standing aside understood, bowed respectfully, and turned around to leave. Li Hanfeng noticed that Deacon Hao was a little impatient, so he stopped talking nonsense, took out the bronze hunter certificate and handed it to him, and said at the same time. I am a hunter. I got a lot of monster materials and beast cores in the misty forest. I wonder if Deacon Hao is interested. After Deacon Hao saw the bronze 3-star hunter badge, his eyes changed when he looked at Li Hanfeng. There was nothing unusual about a bronze 3-star hunter, but such a young bronze 3-star hunter. This young man is not simple. While thinking in his mind, a smile appeared on his face, his attitude became much more respectful, and he said with a smile. Ah ha ha, it turns out that little brother wants to sell monster materials and beast cores. It's easy to talk. Let's go to the guest room to chat. Although he still doesn't think that Li Hanfeng can produce many materials and beast cores. Although he has great potential, he is only a bronze 3-star now, but it does not prevent him from leaving a good relationship with the other party. Li Hanfeng couldn't help but sigh in his heart when he saw the other party's attitude change drastically, and even his husband turned into a little brother. This world is still the same as in the previous life. In the previous life, it was about financial resources, but now it is about strength, or potential. Then he followed the other person to the reception room. After the two of them sat on the sofa in the living room, Deacon Hao made a pot of tea himself, poured it for Li Hanfeng, and then asked. I wonder how many materials and beast cores my little brother has. When Li Hanfeng heard this, he took a sip of tea and praised lightly. The tea is good. Then he glanced at the reception room and felt that the place should be big enough. He raised his left hand and waved, and suddenly a corner of the reception room was filled with beast cores. From the first level to the third level, there are all kinds of monsters, and the number is so amazing that they all pile up into a small mountain. Deacon Howe's pupils shrank when he saw this scene, but he was a person who had seen the scene after all. He suppressed the horror in his heart and said in a slightly respectful voice, "Little brother, it's really beyond my expectation. Did he kill these all by himself?" Hearing this, Li Hanfeng looked lazy, nodded casually and said, "Well, I stayed in the misty forest for a month." Deacon Howe was shocked when he heard this. He actually stayed in the misty forest for a month. And it can kill so many monsters in a month. At a glance, there are quite a few third-level beast cores among them. If at first he felt that Li Hanfeng had great potential and wanted to form a good relationship, then his current idea is that he must make acquaintance, even if he pays a small price. He respectfully asked, "I don't know the material." Li Hanfeng understood the words and waved his left hand again. In an instant, the entire reception room was filled with all kinds of monster materials. There was a dazzling array of materials. The horns of the armored rhinoceros, the sharp claws of the wind demon wolf and the three-eyed demon-loving ape, the jade horns of the jade-horned python, etc., are all available from the first to the third level, and the number is astonishing. Although he had been mentally prepared, Deacon Howe still felt panicked when he saw the monster materials piled up in the reception room. It's not that he has never seen so many beast cores and materials, he has even seen much more than this. He was shocked that a third-level extraordinary person could kill so many monsters in the misty forest in a month, and he was still such a young boy. He asked with a slightly trembling voice, "My little brother is a senior in high school this year, right? I wonder which school he is studying in. He thinks his son can go to that school in the future." Li Hanfeng smiled and said casually, "I won the first prize. Deacon Howe should ask someone to count the quantities and give me a price." Again, there is no need to hide this kind of information. As long as the other party wants to know, they can find out by just looking it up. It is better to say it openly. When Director Howe heard this, he also slapped his head and said suddenly, "Oh, look at me, I was so busy chatting that I almost forgot about the real thing." After saying this, Deacon Howe clapped his hands and shouted toward the door, "Someone is coming." Click. The door to the reception room was opened, and a waitress in professional attire walked in. When she saw the materials and animal cores all over the room, she was stunned and didn't know what was going on. She walked up to the two of them, bowed first to Li Hanfeng, and then to Deacon Howe. When Deacon Howe saw the person coming in, he raised his hand and the material beast core on the ground disappeared instantly. Then he took out a space ring and handed it to the usher, and said, "Check out the contents and bring them in later." "Yes, Deacon." After the receptionist responded, he reached out to take the space ring, and then exited the reception room. When Li Hanfeng saw this scene, his eyes narrowed slightly. Such a large space ring was not just a commodity on the street. He actually took it out casually. Lingbao Pavilion was indeed very wealthy. At this time, Deacon Howe spoke with a smile on his face. "I wonder what little brother wants to trade. Is it spiritual stones or federal coins?" After hearing this, Li Hanfeng lowered his head and pondered for a moment, then raised his head to look at Deacon Howe. His eyes lit up, and he said with a smile, "Aha, Deacon Howe can just call me Han Feng. I wonder what Deacon Howe thinks is a good deal." Deacon Howe was stunned for a moment when he heard this, and then immediately realized that the other party was giving him a chance. He immediately said with a smile, "Brother Han Feng, no matter where you are, spirit stones are hard currency, but the same cannot be said for federal coins." This was already very obvious. Li Hanfeng naturally understood and said with a smile, "Then just follow what Deacon Howe said." The two chatted for a while. At this time, the door of the reception room was knocked, and then a female voice sounded outside the door. "Boom, boom, boom. Deacon Howe, the quantity has been counted. Come in." When Deacon Howe heard that the items were counted, he also called him in. As the door opened, the receptionist just now walked up to Deacon Howe and handed him the space ring, while not forgetting to say, "There are 327 beast cores in total, including 98 of the third level, 135 of the second level, and 94 of the first level." After a pause, she continued, "There are a lot of materials, including 23 first-order iron-armored rhinoceros horns, 28 pairs of first-order wind demon wolf claws, and 17 first-order iron-backed bear armor." Li Hanfeng listened silently. In fact, he probably knew it in his mind. Although he had not counted it, he could still roughly remember how many monsters he killed every day. On average, he kills about 10 monster beasts every day. Sometimes he kills 20 monsters a day, and sometimes he kills 3 to 5 monsters. It is impossible to find so many monster beasts to kill every day. Sometimes he would also use the smell of blood to attract monsters, but of course this kind of thing could only be done on the periphery. Therefore, the number of beast cores is about this. Because he spends most of his time near the central area of the misty forest, the first level beast cores are the least. As for the monster materials, he couldn't calculate it, because he didn't get the materials every time he killed a monster. Sometimes in emergencies, he could only dig up the beast core and run away. By this time the waitress had already reported the quantity. A total of 85 first-level materials, 98 second-level materials, and 98 third-level materials. Deacon Howe was also lowering his head in thought, as if he was evaluating. After pondering for a while, Deacon Howe said, "The first-level beast core is priced at 100,000 federal coins, the second level is 300,000, and the third level is 500,000. As for materials, the most valuable first-order material is rhino horn. The market price is about 50,000 yuan. Because the quantity is large, I charge it at this price. The second and third levels are the same as above. The second level rhinoceros horns are 100,000, and the third level magic ape claws are 150,000. Then there are 1,277 spirit stones in total. Brother Han Feng, do you think there is anything wrong with it?" Li Hanfang was already happy when he heard this number. He could earn more than 1,000 spirit stones in a month, which is equivalent to a small goal of more than 1 federal currency. He knew that the other party was intentionally raising the price for him, but his face remained calm. He lowered his head and thought for a moment before saying, 1,200 spiritual stones and 7.7 million federal coins. Li Hanfeng thought about it and decided that he still had to get some money on him. After all, spiritual stones only circulated among extraordinary people. Deacon Howe also smiled when he heard this. "No problem, bring me your ID card and I'll have someone transfer the money to you." Soon, the receptionist went out with Li Hanfang's identity card, and when he came back, he had an extra space ring in his hand. "Mr. Li, these are your spirit stones and identity cards. Please keep them." Li Hanfang was stunned for a moment. He was also giving a space ring. Then he turned to look at Deacon Howe and saw that he was looking at him with a smile on his face. How could Li Hanfang not understand? "Brother Howe, isn't this too expensive?" Deacon Howe was elated when he was called Brother Howe. He felt so happy in his heart. The smile on his face became thicker and he continued. "Brother Han Feng, don't worry, just think of it as a box containing spiritual stones. After all, there are a lot of spiritual stones, and ordinary boxes can't fit them in." Li Hanfeng thought for a while and accepted the ring. After all, it is a good thing to have a good relationship with someone, not to mention that the other person took the initiative, so he had to give it some face. The saying goes, don't hit the smiling person. "Brother Howe, I'll accept this. I'm sorry for bothering you today. I just came back from the misty forest and I still have some things to deal with. I can only come here to chat another day." After hearing this, Deacon Howe put on a straight face and pretended to be unhappy and said, "Hey, I'm out of town, isn't I? What's the trouble? If you have any problems in the future, just come to me. I still have some respect in this 3-acre land." Seeing that the other party had said this, Li Hanfang could only nod in response. "Okay, brother, then I'll leave first today." Deacon Howe also nodded and said with a smile, "Let's go, I'll see my brother off. ... Phew." Li Hanfang, who had just walked out of Lingbao Pavilion, immediately exhaled. He was really not suitable for dealing with such polite scenes. He always felt tired. "I might as well fight a monster, it's so tiring." Li Hanfang whispered and walked towards home. It should be already 6:30 by now, and the sky had turned dark. Various lights on the street began to light up, and Li Hanfang clearly realized that he had returned to a human city. After about an hour, Li Hanfang was walking on the street outside his community. Li Hanfang, who was supposed to enter the community, paused and then continued walking forward. Going straight ahead was the direction leading to the suburbs. As Li Hanfeng kept walking forward, the nearby buildings began to become more and more separated, and even the street lights were widely separated. This area is already a suburb. Most of the wealthy people live here. The houses are relatively spaced apart and relatively quiet. At this moment, Li Hanfeng, who was walking slowly, suddenly stopped and slowly turned his head to look behind him. A cold voice echoed under the quiet night sky. "Come out, in front of my eyes, your hiding is a little ridiculous." As he spoke, a pair of strange pupils were emitting scarlet light, scanning the surroundings constantly. Li Hanfeng's cold voice suddenly sounded on the silent street, but there was no one around him who responded, as if he was just talking to himself in the air. "It seems that you are very confident in your hiding methods, so." While speaking, Li Hanfeng had already grabbed a tang dao with his left hand and hung it on his waist. "Let you feel the power of these eyes for a little bit." As soon as he finished speaking, Li Hanfeng held the handle of the knife with his right hand and suddenly turned his head to look at the corner of the alley on the right. There seemed to be a shadow trembling slightly in the dark corner. Boom! Then a golden thunder instantly cut through the silent night, and with the roar of the ground shattering, a head was thrown into the air. The head in the air has its eyes wide open, and you can vaguely see deep horror in its eyes. He didn't understand what was going on until he died. He only felt that he looked into a pair of scarlet eyes full of evil aura, and then his vision started to spin for a while, and then he lost consciousness. Zizizi. Li Hanfeng's figure appeared in the alley, the golden arc dancing on his body illuminated the dark alley, and the scarlet Sharingan was constantly scanning the surroundings. "Can you come out?" The cold and biting voice sounded again, accompanied by a pair of scarlet eyes, and the sound of a head falling to the ground, bringing an unparalleled sense of oppression to everyone hiding in the darkness. As soon as he finished speaking, black shadows slowly began to appear around him. From a distance, it looked like shadows squirming in the darkness. Li Hanfeng looked around, his scarlet Sharingan swept over each shadow's body, and his voice was still cold as he spoke. "Only 10 people." As soon as he finished speaking, Li Hanfeng's body suddenly exploded with lightning, and his figure flashed on the spot. Ding! Suddenly there was a harsh sound of metal collision in the field, and then 2 figures appeared in midair. The tang dao and a dagger were standing together, and both sides were competing. At this moment, Li Hanfeng felt a chill on his back. He turned his head and looked behind him. A figure behind him who was about to make a sneak attack was suddenly stared at by a pair of scarlet eyes, and his movements paused for a moment. At this moment of pause, Li Hanfeng's breathing rhythm changed, and white mist surged at the corner of his mouth, making a hissing sound. Breath of Thunder 2 Type Rice Soul. Sitsa, Shwashwashua. Li Hanfeng's tang dao suddenly erupted with rich golden thunder. The golden thunder was transmitted through the dagger to the figure's hand, causing his arm to feel slightly numb, and the 2 weapons were instantly staggered. At the moment when the weapons were staggered, the figure felt that his whole body had been surrounded by 5 golden sword lights in the shape of horseshoes. In just a moment, he dwarfed. After blocking the 2 sword lights with the dagger in his hand, his figure had already jumped back out of the attack range of the sword lights. Li Hanfeng did not pursue him, because there were already 3 figures attacking behind him, but he just sighed secretly in his heart. What a pity. The 4th level peak is really difficult to deal with. Immediately, lightning suddenly appeared on his body, and his figure turned into a bolt of lightning and disappeared. However, as soon as his figure appeared not far away, 4 cold lights from the forest had already struck his vitals. Li Hanfeng's face was expressionless. These attacks were very fast, but in front of the Sharingan, the attack route was still clearly visible. I saw his breathing rhythm changing again, and rich golden thunder and lightning erupted from his body. Buzz buzz. The tang dao made a mosquito-like chirping sound as it swung, and thunder and lightning ripples spread in all directions. Breath of Thunder 3 Types gathering mosquitoes into thunder. Phew, phew, phew. Golden thunder and lightning ripples struck several figures like daggers, and there was a sudden sound of flesh and blood being cut apart. Swish swish swish. Before Li Hanfeng could take advantage of the victory to pursue him, several more figures came to kill him, and the dagger in his hand had already slid to various parts of Li Hanfeng's body. Li Hanfeng's scarlet pupils shrank, and the magatama in his eyes rotated crazily. See clearly. At this time, a cold light suddenly appeared at Li Hanfeng's throat, faster than the previous figures, arriving later, as if waiting for the moment when Li Hanfang was distracted, and then killed him with one blow. However, what Li Hanfang was waiting for was his blow. The Tang Dao in his hand was already held in front of his throat, as if he was already waiting for the opponent's dagger to hit him. Ding! Phew! There was a sound of gold and iron clashing, and Li Hanfang instantly flipped back with the help of the opponent's strength, and was out of the encirclement in a flash of lightning. At this time, Ying Er's face was full of horror. He never thought that his sneak attack at such a high speed could be seen through when the opponent was under siege. This made him a little unbelievable. It takes such a terrifying amount of observation and self-confidence to be able to be distracted and observe the surroundings while being deeply sieged, and to be able to judge one's attack route in an instant. What a terrible person. Fortunately, it's only level 3, otherwise. At this time, Li Hanfang was also observing the group of figures not far away. A gash was cut on his back when he escaped from the encirclement, but there was nothing he could do about it. Even if all attacks can be seen clearly, not all attacks can be avoided. 1 4th level peak, 10 3rd level ones, only one is dead so far. Next, we must reduce the opponent's number. Although he seems arrogant, in fact he just wants to create an illusion to confuse the other party. I don't really feel that I am invincible, after all, I am only a low-level transcendent. Li Hanfang stared at the other side. His handsome face looked unusually cold against the backdrop of his strange pupils, and his voice was also unusually cold, without any emotion. Warm-up is over. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Hanfang's hands danced rapidly, completing the seal in just 1 second. I saw Li Hanfang curling his fingers in front of his mouth, his chest rising high as the spiritual energy surged wildly, his cheeks bulging, and he sprayed towards the group of figures on the opposite side. Art Fire Escape Ho Fireball. Boom. A huge fireball let out an angry roar and rushed towards several figures. However, these figures are all proficient in assassination and have dark talents. They are extremely fast. It is indeed difficult for the powerful fireball to attack the opponent at this distance. Sure enough, the figure on the opposite side was a little surprised when he saw the high fireball coming, but his movements were not slow and he escaped from the attack range of the high fireball in a flash. Boom! The fireball landed on a wall and made a loud noise. The gravel flew everywhere along with sparks. The rich firelight illuminated the silent night, making several of the figures appear. Damn it! At this time, Ying Er was cursing secretly in his heart, and could not suppress the horror on his face. This person was actually gifted in the fire element, and actually had twin extraordinary talents. No wonder he was so strong at the 3rd level. Moreover, the commotion here is too loud. Although it is far away from the downtown area, there will not be much time. The city guard will arrive soon, and it will be difficult to deal with it then. Thinking of this, he immediately said, "Quick victory." The voice is hoarse, giving people the uncomfortable feeling of clawing at a blackboard. After saying that, he turned to look at Li Hanfang, but in the next moment, his pupils suddenly shrank. Li Hanfang was seen holding the knife in his right hand, leaning forward, his center of gravity sinking, his eyes slightly closed, and white mist surging around his mouth. Then let's fight quickly. The words have fallen. Li Hanfang suddenly opened his eyes, his scarlet pupils filled with lightning. Breath of thunder, type of 1, flash of thunder, 8th company. Boom. Aha, aha, aha. A golden thunder shot directly into the crowd, like lightning piercing the dark night. Every time the thunder beat, it would bring up a piece of blood, and even a head. The figures wanted to fight back, but they couldn't do it because the speed was too fast, like a fleeting lightning bolt that couldn't be caught. They wanted to temporarily escape from the battle circle, but found that no matter how they concealed themselves, it would not help. A pair of scarlet eyes locked on them, and the monster aura exuded was shuddering. Aha, 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 damn it, Ying Er cursed angrily. He was the only one in the field who could barely keep up with Li Hanfang's speed, but he could only fight back passively and could not lock Li Hanfang's figure at all. But Li Hanfang ignored him at all, which made him helpless and powerless. This talent move is so powerful, with its extreme burst speed and direction change speed, he has no ability to intercept it. Aha, phew. As another head was thrown into the air, Li Hanfang's figure finally stopped. At this time, there were still 2 figures standing on the field, one of which was Ying Er. The rest were either injured and fell to the ground, or their heads were separated. Several people who had been injured by Li Hanfeng's 3 types before were slow in their movements due to their injuries, and none of them survived. As soon as Li Hanfeng's figure stopped, Ying'er immediately caught the opportunity, or in other words, he had been waiting for this moment. He knew that Li Hanfeng could not continue to attack forever. There must be a limit, and he knew this limit now. 8 hits in a row. Ying'er murmured in his heart, but his speed did not slow down at all. Like a shadow traveling through the darkness, he appeared beside Li Hanfeng in the blink of an eye. The dagger in his hand was like a poisonous snake, biting hard at Li Hanfeng's throat. And Li Hanfeng, who had just used the first form in the 8th company, was in a state of adjustment. At this time, he had no time to dodge and could only attack hard. A pair of scarlet Sharingan stared at the dagger heading towards his throat, and he saw the attack route clearly. Li Hanfeng turned his head to the right and raised the handle of the Tang Dao in his hand. Ding! The dagger grazed Li Hanfeng's neck, leaving a shallow mark, and then stabbed on the handle. The huge force brought Li Hanfeng's body out, and he stomped the ground, swept back, and opened a certain distance. As soon as Li Hanfeng stood firm, a figure appeared strangely behind him, and a cold light pierced the back of his heart. However, Li Hanfeng had already realized it. His Sharingan kept turning crazily. Except for the 5 dead people, everyone else in the scene was the object of his attention. If you want to sneak attack him when he is prepared, unless you are so fast that he cannot see clearly. But it was obvious that the figure behind Li Hanfeng did not have such speed. Li Hanfeng turned his wrist, held the Tang Dao with his backhand, leaned forward, and lifted it with his backhand. The Tang knife slid past Li Hanfeng's waist and abdomen, and he bowed to hold the dagger behind him. Ding! The sound of gold and iron fighting rang out. Li Hanfeng blocked the blow and turned around quickly. The golden electric arcs on his body danced, and he directly forced the opponent back with a backhand slash. Then the Tang saber in Li Hanfeng's hand suddenly slashed down towards the back right side. Ding! Li Hanfeng's Tang Dao collided directly with Ying'er's dagger. The huge force knocked Li Hanfeng back a few steps. Before he could stop, another cold light hit his lower back. At this time, Li Hanfeng was in a troublesome situation. He was caught in an opportunity where his old strength had just been released and his new strength had not yet been born. Then he continued to launch extremely fast attacks on him. Li Hanfeng had no time to adjust his breathing and counterattack, and could only temporarily defend passively. But his expression was still cold, and his scarlet eyes were still moving crazily, scanning the figures around him. There was no trace of anxiety or panic, it seemed like everything was still under control. At this time, a total of 3 people surrounded Li Hanfeng, and they were the only 3 people left in the audience who could still fight. One of them had an obvious knife wound on his shoulder, which was obviously caused by a chop in the previous battle. A trace of white mist surged from the corner of Li Hanfeng's mouth from time to time, but every time he was interrupted by the attack for just a moment, unable to use any moves to break the situation. Even so, if you look carefully, you will find that Li Hanfeng's left hand is making several strange gestures one after another. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Ying'er was a little anxious and cursed in his heart. The time had dragged on for too long, and he would really be exposed if he continued like this. Ying'er's attacks began to become faster and faster, more and more crazy, but apart from leaving a few wounds on Li Hanfeng's body, they could not resolve the battle in a short time. The other 2 could only harass Li Hanfeng and could not even leave wounds on him. Is it because of those eyes? Ying'er, who gradually calmed down, also discovered the problem, and all their attack routes were seen through. In addition, the opponent itself is also good at speed. Although they have the advantage, they do not have the ability to determine the outcome, resulting in a stalemate. Just when Ying'er was thinking about how to deal with the opponent, Li Hanfeng suddenly made a new move. Ding! After Li Hanfeng blocked an attack, he suddenly turned his body, bent his fingers in front of his mouth, his chest suddenly bulged, his cheeks bulged, and he sprayed suddenly. Art fire escape ho fireball. Boom! A huge fireball roared towards the injured figure. Just as he was about to attack Li Hanfeng, a fireball suddenly came towards him. It was too close, and he didn't expect the other party to release a fireball in this situation, giving him no time to react. Ah! The huge fireball instantly engulfed his body, and the intense high temperature instantly caused him to let out a painful cry, and then his whole body turned into charcoal and fell to the ground. Human bodies do not need to be stronger than those of monsters. Although the powerful fireball is not fatal to rough-skinned monsters in a short period of time, it is extremely effective against humans. The sudden change made the remaining two people a little confused. They did not expect that Li Hanfang could release fireballs, and they were caught off guard. In this moment of confusion, Li Hanfang turned into a bolt of lightning and instantly distanced himself. Then he leaned forward, his center of gravity sank, his eyes closed slightly, and wisps of white mist began to appear around his mouth. Already ready to attack, the expressions of the two people on the opposite side changed when they saw this posture. Just now, several people died and several were seriously injured by this move. If they do it again. Ying Er's face was also clouded. Although he was confident that the other party couldn't kill him with this move, because he already knew the limit of this move. But the other shadow guard is afraid that he will not survive, including the ones on the ground. He has no ability to rescue. At this time, Li Hanfang's cold voice reached everyone's ears. Is that all there is to it? You don't seem to know how to use your innate moves. Li Hanfang said this expressionlessly. This was his doubt. He had always had a backup plan, waiting for the opponent to make a move. As a result, he found that among the 11 people on the other side, not one of them used their natural moves. No matter how anxious Ying Er was, he still didn't use his moves. And the other party is not as strong as the 4th level extraordinary he imagined. He didn't know the difference before, but now that he is close to the intermediate level, he can see some things more clearly. He also realized that it was a complete fluke that he could kill the 4th level transcendent in the forest. But now he found that there seemed to be something wrong with this group of people. They had exactly the same abilities and talents, but they didn't know how to use their talents. It was a bit like extraordinary beings manufactured in batches. After thinking about it, he felt that it didn't matter anymore. Anyway, the other party would definitely die here tonight. Thinking of this, Li Hanfang did not wait for the other party to answer, but said directly and coldly. It doesn't matter, let's end tonight's farce. The words fell. Boom. The ground around Li Hanfang shattered directly, golden thunder suddenly appeared on his body, and pieces of gravel floated around him, as if they were pulled by some force and did not splash out. The pupils of Ying Er on the opposite side suddenly shrank, and this aura was more than twice as powerful as before. What happened? Are there any stronger moves? The hair all over his body stood on end, and his body was tense to the extreme, ready to dodge counterattacks at any time. At this moment, Li Hanfang's eyes suddenly opened, his pupils were scarlet, and the whites of his eyes were covered by golden lightning, and he stared directly at Ying Er. Ying Er felt a chill running wildly from the bottom of his heart, as if he was being targeted by the 9 nether demon. Suddenly, he felt the golden light in his eyes flashing away, his neck felt cold, and his eyes were already spinning. Breath of thunder shape of 1 thunderbolt flash super speed. Because the speed was so fast, his head flew out and his consciousness has not dissipated. How is it possible that you can't see clearly at all? Am I already dead? As soon as this thought flashed through my mind, my consciousness fell into boundless darkness, and I could never wake up again. Boom, boom, boom. As his head rolled to the ground, Li Hanfang slowly stood up and looked at the last somewhat dull figure. The figure seemed to notice Li Hanfang looking over, and subconsciously looked up. The next moment, he only felt that his vision was occupied by a pair of huge scarlet pupils, and there was a black magatama slowly rotating in the pupils. Immediately, a cold voice sounded in his mind. Who asked you to come? It's home. Phew. The figure's words were intermittent, and the expression on his face was twisted and struggling, but before he finished speaking, the dagger in his hand was inserted into his throat the next moment. Li Hanfang frowned when he saw this scene. The power of the Sharingan with 1 magatama is still not that good. It would be better if there were 3 magatama. But these people are actually dead soldiers. It seems that the person behind this is really not simple. Who is it? Li Hanfang didn't have an answer, so he simply stopped thinking about it. It was better to leave here now, otherwise he would be blocked by the city guard, which would be troublesome. He doesn't want to come into contact with the city guards yet. Li Hanfang immediately turned around and started to finish off the wounds, and took care of all the seriously injured figures who fell to the ground. He did not try to ask any more questions. There was no way, the Sharingan was not home yet. After doing all this, Li Hanfeng immediately turned into a bolt of lightning and disappeared. It flew away at high speed in the direction of home. Not long after Li Hanfeng left the place, about half a quarter of an hour later, a man with a short hair suddenly appeared on the spot. He looked around, frowning fiercely as he looked at the potholes on the ground, the smoke-filled battle circles, and the dozen or so headless corpses. The next moment, there were several more figures running towards this side at high speed, and they arrived beside the short-haired man in just a moment. 3 men and 1 woman were all looking around at the situation. After a while, a thin man wearing night clothes spoke. Judging from the traces on the ground and the wounds on the corpse, he should be a fire-based extraordinary person who is good at using knives. His voice was cold, as if this kind of scene had become accustomed to him, and he did not show any expression of intolerance. He only added, "Judging from the remaining elemental fluctuations, it shouldn't exceed level 3, but judging from the situation on site, it's unlikely that a low-level transcendent could kill so many people so quickly." When he said this, his brows also furrowed. It was obvious that his judgment might be somewhat inconsistent, and then he began to check and groping on the corpse. Others stood there and watched him survey the situation. It was obvious that he was the person in the team who was specifically responsible for this aspect of work. Soon, he checked all the corpses, then he stood up, pursed his lips and said to everyone, "There are traces of thunder elements remaining in the body, and the elemental reaction does not exceed the 3rd level." After a pause, he continued, "But judging from the remaining spiritual power of the corpse, the lowest ones are all at the 3rd level, and there is another extraordinary person who should be at the peak of the 4th level. And judging from the wounds, these people should have been killed by 1 person." Hearing this, a flash of doubt flashed in the eyes of the short-haired man, but the next moment it turned into horror, and he asked directly, "You mean, these 10 3rd level and 1 4th level peak were killed by a 3rd level transcendent?" Hearing this, the man responsible for surveying the situation nodded. "Based on the on-site judgment, it is correct, and it is not a 3rd level, but a 3rd level that may be twin talents." As soon as these words came out, several other people could no longer hold back and spoke one after another. "Old Liu, you can't make a mistake, right? Twin talents." "Yes, Old Liu, could it be that some of these 10 people are of the fire element?" "Old Liu, what is the basis for your judgment?" After hearing everyone asking questions, the short-haired man directly shouted, "Okay, let's listen to Old Liu continue." When everyone saw the short-haired man speaking, they all stopped talking and all looked at the man named Lao Lu in unison. When Lao Lu saw everyone looking at him, he pursed his lips again and said, "I have no conclusive basis, but there are only 2 elements left at the scene. The talents of all the corpses are unknown. The murderer can be determined to be level 3. So, it must be unbelievable that a 3rd level lightning element can kill so many people in a short period of time, including a 4th level peak person, but what if it is a 3rd level person with twin talents?" After saying this, he didn't speak again. Everyone was lowering their heads in deep thought, either thinking about the credibility of Old Liu's words, or thinking about who was the twin genius in the city. The scene fell into an eerie silence for a moment. The short-haired man looked at the corpse on the ground with twinkling eyes and murmured, "Why do these people's outfits look familiar?" Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.